Welcome back to 8158 Podcast Stories of Sacrifice. Today's guest is no stranger to service, leadership, and standing firm in his convictions. Sheriff Mark Lamb, known to many as the American Sheriff, joins us to share his journey from humble beginnings to leading one of Arizona's largest counties. From patrolling the streets to leading high-risk operations and now empowering law enforcement through his new venture, 10-7 Consulting, Sheriff Lamb opens up about the heart behind the badge, the lessons learned on and off the job, and the legacy he's building for the next generation of first responders. This conversation isn't about politics, it's about purpose, resilience, and what it really means to wear the uniform. Let's dive in.
You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Today we have a special guest, a celebrity guest. Today we have retired Sheriff Mark Lamb. He is going to join us on our podcast today, and we just would like to thank him for his graciousness to join us. How's it going there, Mark?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thanks for the intro, too.
You're welcome. Hey, you know what? I love everything about you, man. I love your policies. I love the fact that the way you handled yourself on the show, and you know, we supported you the best we could when you were running for a senator. So,
well, and I appreciate it. That does not go unnoticed. We were very fortunate to have a lot of different people donate a small amount, which to me meant more than going out and having a bunch of rich people max out. I thought, you know, those smaller donations meant more to those people who were the real people in this country that drive it. And so, yeah, it was nice to have that kind of support from all the regular folks out there.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure you would appreciate it. You know, we're pulling for you. I mean, we're all the way in Kentucky, but you know, if we were in Arizona, it'd be different.
And it's Kentucky's a great place, and Arizona, we're trying to find our way back. It's a great state. It's a red state, but it's deceiving. It doesn't look like it from the outside in. I don't want to dive into politics unless you want to, but it is Arizona's just one of these states where the people are very independent minded, you know, and so they can kind of go both ways when it comes to politics.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, generally our podcast isn't geared towards politics. It's more towards law enforcement stuff like that.
Good. So, I prefer that. Good.
We have our opinions, and mine are pretty much aligned with yours, so we're good on that one.
Yeah, look, I now that I'm not in politics, I mean, I do a lot of interviews about it, but I'm just really about America, you know, whatever I can do to promote this country, freedom. My beliefs are God, family, freedom, and the Constitution, which Absolutely. Go in line with law enforcement and what I did as a career for so long. It's why I ran for sheriff. I never had a goal to be in politics. The only reason I ran for the U.S. Senate was because I thought we need real Americans representing us. And I tried to do it. Didn't work out, but at least I didn't win. I don't want to say it didn't work out because I'm one of those believers. Everything happens for a reason. And ultimately, my family was the benefactor of it. The only downside was I had to walk away from the job of being sheriff, which I loved.
Oh, man. Well, you made it your best effort. And unfortunately, you had to walk away from that wonderful position.
You know, my wife and I, we have this philosophy, give everything 100%. So that when you turn around and look back, you don't really have to look back. But when you reflect on what you were able to do, you don't have any regrets because you gave it 100%. So whether it's 100% with your family, 100% in your job, 100% of whatever you're doing, you'll never have that moment where you think, man, I should have done this different or I should have done that different. You'll just look back and say, look, I gave it 100%. It went the way it was supposed to go. And so we don't look back and say that we don't have any regrets. We don't have any remorse for what we've done because we did it and it worked out great.
Right. Definitely proud of you.
Thank you.
It
I
would have been nice
appreciate it.
to have you in the Senate, but
Well, there's a lot of life to live yet. We'll see what happens.
you never know. Maybe you might be
That's
president.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
about that, man. I think about just the heaviness of being in political office. It's so polarizing now that people
Yeah.
are just so angry and vitriol. If somebody believes different than you, they just get angry with each other. And I've
Yeah.
always been the one that like I'm confident and bold enough to stand up for what I believe in, but I don't hate somebody if they think different than me. I
Right.
just it that's what makes America great.
Right. We don't always have to agree on everything.
Right. Like I always tell people, you don't agree with your spouse all 100% of the time. You don't agree with your friends or your children 100% of the time. Yet we have this weird thing in our head where we believe that we should agree with our politicians 100% of the time. And it's just not the way it goes. Um, I think what you should look for, the people that best espouse what your belief system is. For me, it's God, family, freedom, the Constitution. So I look for people that are going to represent me in a way that embodies that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I wanted to get started on some questions here, kind of like in the beginning of your life, life before the badge. You've had a unique journey from working in pest control, paintballing, to becoming a detective and then a sheriff. What first inspired you to pursue a career in law enforcement?
I don't, I, that's a weird question because I don't know that I was ever inspired to do it. I grew up in Hawaii. My dad was a graduate of Thunderbird, which is an international business school. So I grew up in Hawaii. So I grew up as a little white kid in Hawaii. It's a different upbringing, and you learn how
Yeah,
to kind of be tough in that arena. I was just a little scrawny kid, and then we moved to the Philippines, and then we came. My dad was from Arizona. And so we spent time in Arizona, and then we moved to Panama, then Argentina. And I just kind of followed in my dad's footsteps. I wanted to be in business, and I had a pest control business, paintball business. I had done some sales along the way, but I liked being my own boss. And but I wasn't fulfilled. So I guess it wasn't really inspiration. I was looking for some type of fulfillment that I was doing more. When you have your business in those type of arenas, you go out, you do your work, you get money in your bank account. But at the end of the day, do you feel like when you're cleaning somebody's house and protecting them from pigeons coming back, you don't feel super fulfilled? You're like, yeah, I did a good job on their house, but I didn't do anything for society today. And so I
right.
was kind of in this place in life. I had 5 kids. I was in my early 30s and just felt unfulfilled in some areas of my life. And so I thought, I wasn't really thinking. I had a friend who just said, "Hey, do you want to go on a ride along?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go. Sounds fun." We'd watch UFC fights. He would tell us some stories. And so it sounded fun. And so I decided to go on this ride along. I remember one call was a guy had found a 20-year-old with his 14-year-old daughter, and they got into a scuffle. Guy runs out the back, so we show up, and we're out looking for this guy. And I remember I was just out there armed with a flashlight and courage, walking around in the field. For some reason, they let me out of the car, and was out there walking around with the other cops. And I see this old abandoned travel trailer. It was on an Indian reservation, and so I see this old abandoned travel trailer, and I look in the window and I see a bunch of debris and clothes. And in that, I see what I think is a quarter size of skin. And I'm like, look, this guy's in here. I think he's in here. So they go in there They move all the clothes in the trash. They look in the and they look in there. They see him. They grab him. They rough him up. They tase him and put him in cuffs. I went home that morning and I woke up my wife. I said, "Honey, I want to be a cop." And 6 months later, I was in the academy. And like you had
Nice.
mentioned, I was fortunate enough to be a rookie of the year, officer of the year. Then I quickly became a gang and drug detective, became detective of the year. I actually got voted for detective of the year twice in a row. But by this time, they'd put me on the committee for the award ceremony. And we just thought that wouldn't be the right look. And so we picked somebody else for the
Right.
detective of the year. But yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, what a way to shape your community and leadership skills. Just that one little incident.
Yeah, that's it. And so, I guess that was the inspiration. But one little thing like that, one little ride along, changed the direction of my life, my career, what I was able to do for that reservation, because that's where I started my career, and then ultimately where I went with my career at the county, and then as a sheriff.
Right. Which you did a fabulous job from what I hear. So,
Thank you, thank you. We gave it 100%. That's for sure.
right. Uh, so in journeying through law enforcement, what stands out most about your time with the Salt River Piama Maricopa Police Department, and how did that role prepare you for what came next?
For they're great people. They're really great people, but it's somewhat of a socialist society. So the reservation is different than the rest of the country. They are their own sovereign countries, but then you've got this big overwatch of the federal government over top of it. And so these Native American communities oftentimes they have free housing, they get a stipend if their casinos are big enough, and ultimately it doesn't encourage ingenuity, creativity, work ethic. uh, they can't own their properties, so it doesn't make people want to go out and work harder and buy a
Mm.
bigger property on the reservation. And ultimately what you end up seeing is everybody's in the same frame, and it's not great. And it was nice to be able to go in and kind of look at some of the issues where I thought I could help. They had a real gang problem. And so when I was a gang and drug detective, we had a huge problem with drive-by shootings. And so I tackled that problem, and we were able to through a federal RICO case, have significant positive results to the point where we had, in a little community with only like 5,000 people live there, we had 79 drive-by shootings in 2009. We had, and then we started this case and really started rocking and rolling, putting our, pressure on the gangs. And then we went to 10 drive-by shootings in 2010, to 0 drive-by shootings in 2011, and 0 drive-by shootings in 2012 when I finally left the reservation to go to the county. So we had a huge impact. And for me, I felt good about it because we were making a difference. These people felt safer. We were able to really take that gang activity down in the community. And it was nice. That's what I liked about the reservation is great people. And it was a smaller microcosm. And so we were able to really see results of the work we were doing as opposed to a big city where it's a drop in the bucket. This is a
Right.
small community. Our work was measurable, and we were able to see the effects it had on the people that lived in the community. And I liked it. I liked seeing those results.
Sounds pretty awesome. It reminds me a lot of Montana because I lived in Montana. Well, Brianna and I both lived in Montana for a long time, um, and there's a lot of reservations there, and it's a lot of the same things. We're not sure about the crime rates, but we know that a lot of the native uh, individuals would come off the reservations, commit crimes, and then go back to the reservations to hide out because they know law enforcement can't go back. You know, like state and local law enforcement can't go on the reservations without federal warrants or whatever because it's run by the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Yeah.
Is it like that in Arizona too?
So the BIA isn't as big because the reservations we have in Arizona have pretty robust casinos. So they have their own police force. And then you have the Navajo Nation. They have
Mhm.
their own police force, which is it's not even AZ Post. It's and plus they have their own retirement because that's a big nation. There's quite a few people that live on the Navajo Nation. It's huge territory wise, but most of the reservations within the in Arizona are around communities, and so their casinos do really well, and so they have their own police force. They start by hiring natives, and then if they don't by community members. Second is natives, and then third is non-natives, which is where I fell into when I was able to get hired on.
Okay.
And so yeah, but yeah, you're right. As a sheriff, I had 4 reservations in my county. I wasn't able to go on there without the permission of the reservation, and even then, I had to be strictly invited to whatever we were doing on there. It's difficult, and now with the cartels, the cartels have realized just how protected the reservations are. And so a lot of the cartel activity, whether it's bringing people across the border or drugs across the border or housing drug operations within the United States, especially the West, a lot of that is being done on the reservations because they know that local law enforcement has no jurisdiction out there. So it's presented a problem, and I think it's continuing to present a problem for especially when it relates to drugs and human trafficking from the cartels.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know about that. It makes total sense now. Um, I guess where there's a will, there's a way, but that
Yeah.
hopefully will be stomped out. Wow.
I do too. I hope so too. And look, we're every day we're working with Border Patrol and we're doing that. Border Patrol, now that they're the things that have changed over the last 7, 8 months, where they were babysitters, they were basically dealing with all the people that came across the border. Now they're back to doing their job, and that gives them the ability to go back out on the reservation and find the people because there is no wall where the reservation is on the south end of the county. People are just walking across. There's at best 3 strands barbed wire fence, maybe some Normandy barrier, but people can just walk right across. And so for you know not politically, but you take the first Trump administration where I was the sheriff during that, and
Mhm.
that's where they would push people through the deserts through the reservation, human trafficking, drug trafficking. And then last 4 years, it was just a free for all. They were coming through everywhere. So the reservations didn't have to, or the cartels didn't have to work as hard to push them through the reservations. Now that the border has been shut down quite a bit, almost, it's a huge night-day difference from what it was. Now the cartels are back to pushing their drugs and the people through those reservations. So I hope to see it change too. And I hope that we continue to put more and more resources for Border Patrol and our federal partners on those areas so that we can stop the flow coming into those reservations as well.
Absolutely. I'm all for that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to my next question here. When you became sheriff in Pinal County in 2017, what were some of the biggest challenges and the proudest moments you faced in those early days?
We had a lot of challenges. So one of the big problems was our guys hadn't gotten raises in 11 years. Morale was low. Guys were wanting to leave and go work at other agencies. We had a camaraderie problem where we had camaraderie in between the county and the sheriff. So they were at odds. And so the county wasn't interested in helping out the sheriff's office because the sheriff and the county were butting heads every day. So we had that problem to deal with. The budget was a mess. And a lot of that stemmed from the relationship between the county and the sheriff's office. So we had a budgeting issue we had to fix. We were also competing with other agencies for hiring. Pinal County is between Phoenix and Tucson. So on the bottom end, we're competing with Tucson PD, Pima County. On the top end, which is even more, we're competing with Phoenix and Mesa and Chandler and all of these other agencies that were paying more money we were competing with them, so we had to deal with that issue. So I would say those are some of the biggest issues we were dealing with. And then the community, we were getting into this place coming out of the late 2000s, early 2000 teens. We had politicians, and we had the invention of, not the invention, but cell phones were becoming more prolific. So we're seeing all these videos, and we're seeing politicians use those videos to drive a wedge between law enforcement and the public. And so those were some of the issues that we had to tackle. When you ask about what made me feel good about it, we finally started getting our guys raises. Just their most recent raise, we pretty much got them raises every year. We got them on a real viable pay scale where they were getting raises every year. We've gotten their pay pretty comparable to what some of the other bigger agencies are paying. We got the morale lifted on many levels, not just on the pay level, but on many levels. You'll hear guys will go other places for money, but the biggest driving factor is leadership. If you have bad leadership, people will leave even high paying jobs. If you have good leadership, people will stay even though they're paying more other places. We were able to accomplish that at the county. We empowered our guys. We saw the effects of that immediately. We saw the positive effects of working with our county and getting our budget corrected. It took us a year and a half, but after that, we stayed under budget every year. So I was proud of what we did for the taxpayer by giving them a better service, a positive service, and we were doing it, and we were staying under budget. We also were able to hire where other agencies were struggling with hiring because of the work we were doing and how we delivered it, how we used social media to promote it. We were able to actually hire not only new guys, but lateral guys, good laterals from other agencies as well. And when other people were struggling with hiring, we were doing really good with hiring. So those were some of the things on a big chunky surface that we were proud of what we did and some of the big issues we were facing.
Wow. That's a tough accomplishment right there, especially when you're dealing with budgets and budgeting issues. That is a feat. And then
It is a
keeping your
lot.
personnel.
Yeah. Yeah, but we were able to do that. And at the same time, we did all that, and we developed a tighter relationship with our community to where your community will defend you if you have good leadership and you are show the people what kind of work you're doing, which is what we did. We weren't afraid of social media. Most leaders in law enforcement are afraid of setting the narrative. They're afraid of sharing what's going on. They're afraid to showcase it. And we did the opposite. We said we're going to use it for hiring. We're going to use it to better our relationship with our community. We're going to show the people what they're getting for their tax dollars, and we're going to promote the agency that way. And we did it, and we were very successful in those areas. And we just took something that most people were afraid of. We made it and turned it into our benefit. And the community ultimately ends up defending you, even when people are negative towards you. Your community members will jump on there and be like, no, the sheriff does a good job. They'll defend you on it. So
That's pretty awesome to have the community backing. I mean, I bet you that was pretty refreshing for you.
oh yeah. Like we got along with our community where I came from at the reservation, but it was still tough because it's a very different environment to work in. When we came out to the county, when you're elected as the sheriff, there's power in that. That is, you are the people's choice for law enforcement. And I know, especially when we had COVID and all that stuff came out, you saw how important it was to have a sheriff who was bold enough and strong enough to stand on his own 2 feet and protect the people that worked for him and to protect the people in his community. Contrary to popular belief, we were going against all that. We said, no, it's not. You're not going to lock my people down. You're not going to force them to wear a mask. And you're not going to force my employees to take a vaccine. And because we took a strong stance, the community loved us for it. We had people wanting to move to our county because of it. And my employees were like, we love working here. Our boss has our back.
Right. Yeah, Brianna and I took that same stance. We refused all of that stuff because we didn't think it was
good for you guys.
helpful. So
yeah, It's not
Yeah.
easy, man. They make
No.
you like, they treat you like you're patient zero, like you
Right.
started the whole thing. It's no, man. I'm just not going to play this game that you guys are playing.
Yeah, they treated us like we were pariahs. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like, aren't you
yeah,
the
they
fool?
do.
'Cause now you got other medical health issues.
Yeah, yeah. Now look at what's happening. But you know
Yeah.
what? I wasn't even a doctor, but I could see it clearly because I wasn't being hoodwinked. I could see, and I would ask and ask questions. And I'd be like, this doesn't, none of it makes sense. And
Mm,
this is what happened to the flu. Now all of a sudden we go from having 300,000 cases of the flu to zero.
yeah.
I'm not the smartest guy, but I can figure out you just swap numbers around. You're
Right.
calling it something different. And then the other thing was I paid attention to the comorbidity factors. I paid attention to the county health when we were talking about what were people dying of. And they would
Mm,
say COVID. And I go, no, no, no. What did they die of? Well, a motorcycle accident, but they had COVID. And so that's little things like that I knew. Here's the biggest factor for anybody that thinks there's going to be people listening to this that are like, oh, screw him. But we never took anybody out of the house that died in the house. Like we would, if they were sick, they would go to the hospital. Maybe the
mhm.
ambulance would take it to the hospital. But nobody was dying in their homes from COVID. And if it was what they said it was, to the point where you had to shut the whole world down for it, then people would be dying in their houses left and right. But they
Right.
weren't. People weren't dying until they went to the hospitals and were put on respirators and given remdesivir or all these other things. That's truly what did it in. And so, yeah, look, I just never fell for any of it. And now, in time, I'm vindicated for it. But at the time, boy, man, people were tough. They wanted to hammer you left and right for thinking going against the grain.
Right. They did not like it at all, one
No,
bit. It's like they
nope.
wanted to burn you at the stake.
Yeah, they did. But screw them. Look,
That's what I
we
said.
did I had a job. I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. I swore an oath to defend the rights and the freedoms of my people. And I took that oath serious. And while other people were saying, well, I said, look, the Constitution has no clause in there that says you can shut it, you can turn off the Constitution and people's rights and freedoms when you feel a little scared. That's not in
Right.
there. And so we took a different stance. And I was okay with it because to me, like I would tell people, the line was so distinct in the sand of what was right and wrong and what was constitutional and what was going against constitutional rights. And we took a stance for what was right and constitutional, regardless of how unpopular it was.
Exactly. Amen to that. Uh, Moving on to my next question now. You oversaw everything from search and rescue and anti-smuggling squads. Uh, can you walk us through what a day in the life of a county sheriff actually looks like?
Well, it depends on what kind of county sheriff you are. You got fat old house cats that sit on the that sit around the house and don't do anything or sit at the office. Um, and then there's sheriffs of really big counties, and so they spend their time dealing with community meetings and all those things. Then you have really small counties where these sheriffs are out there every day. They have to go respond to calls, and they've got a whole ton of work that they do. They're an integral part of the daily work that's being done. I happen to be in one of those beautiful counties, it was large enough to be professional and have a good budget, but it was small enough still to where I could know my employees and I could have a relationship with those employees, and it made it feel like a family. So we just happened to be in a really great county for that. What does it look like? Like you said, we had search and rescue. So for those who don't know, in Arizona, the sheriff is constitutionally mandated to collect taxes and to have a search and rescue. So I'm responsible for search and rescue. And so you have a search and rescue team. We had 4 helicopters and a plane. We have an anti-smuggling unit, and they were out there trying to deal with drugs and people being smuggled in. I have canines, so I have 6 canines. I had 4 on the road and 2 in the jail. The jail ones would sniff for drugs inside of our jail facility. And then my guys on the road, those canines on the road, they were strictly dedicated to interdiction. So they're looking for drugs and guns going the other way back to Mexico. And they're looking for people being smuggled into the country. So our canines were dedicated to that. I have motor units, which are motorcycle. I have traffic guys who are guys like Fridays with Frank. Fridays with Frank is part of our traffic unit. And then I had patrol, sex offender registration, detectives. We had all at it all. So as a sheriff, my job every day was to get up and make sure that patrol, no matter who you are, the deputies or the cops and the sergeants on the road, and if you have a jail, the detention officers and the sergeants in the jail, they're the heartbeat of whatever you're doing. They're the ones that are truly doing the work. A lieutenant, a captain, a commander, whatever you have. So we had lieutenants, captains, and then we had the chiefs, and then we had the sheriff. We're support for the guys that are the deputies and the sergeants, or the detention officers and the sergeants. They do the work every day. So I would go in and make sure that all of those things that the support they needed from the sheriff was being attended to. I dealt with community meetings. I would go to high schools. I would go speak, outside of Arizona, nationally, about fentanyl and about human trafficking and drug trafficking. So my schedule was very different in the sense that the way we did our job had a national presence, a state presence, and a national presence. And so I did things outside of what the normal job of a sheriff might be, but to me, that was still the sheriff's job. My job is to promote the county, to promote the agency, to promote the profession. And so I took that serious. So that's what I did every day. But it does vary from sheriff to sheriff, state to state, size of department. All of that's going to play a factor into what a sheriff does every day. But I felt like I was in one of the best counties to be a really to have the ability to have fun because you weren't super big, and still be part of, get to do the job I love, but at the same time have a national presence for the things that I believed in as well.
All right. That's pretty awesome. Still, it is a very big job.
Yeah,
Being
it's
the
a big
face of
job.
the county. Yeah.
So for anybody listening, our county was 5,400 square miles. So that's the size of the state of Connecticut. That's what we had to patrol. We had a population of around 500,000, but we, the sheriff's office, even though everybody lives in our county, we were the police services for about 250,000 of the 500,000 people. We were responsible for search and rescue. We were responsible for a lot of other pieces inside of that agency where people relied on you every day. We had a budget of $60 million. I had 600 employees. I had about 250 sworn, about 180 detention officers. And then we had obviously our civilian employees as well.
That is a wide area to cover.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. A lot like Montana. I don't know how many counties are in Arizona, but in Montana, you know how big Montana is. They only have 56 counties in Montana.
So we only have 15 counties in the state of Arizona.
You got a huge area.
For anybody that doesn't know, 67 counties, I think, in Missouri. Missouri has 115, and then 114 real counties. Then St. Louis County they don't elect their sheriff, but they have 115 total. I think Georgia has 168 counties. Iowa, I think, has 99 counties. Montana, which doesn't have near the population, 56 counties. Utah, I think, has 29 counties. California, 56 counties, something like that. And then Arizona, 15. So our counties are huge land-wise, and we have a lot of population in our counties.
That is a wide space, man.
254 counties in Texas.
254 counties.
Yeah.
Wow. I know. I think in Kentucky we have over 100 and something counties, and they're all tiny. And Kentucky's a relatively small state, so
I think it used to be broken up like that. And I don't know, that's probably not where you want to go with the conversation. I'll make it short. I think they were broken up like that because when you get east of the Mississippi, they were built, those counties and states came about when you didn't have when you didn't have planes, trains, and automobiles.
right.
They were going places on horseback, and so they needed to be able to cover that county. I think a lot of states said you had to be able to ride from one end of your county to the other in a day on a horse, and so a lot of those counties were they came about because they were back in the horse days when you had to patrol it or cover it on a horseback, and so that's why those states have so many counties.
Okay, I didn't know that. Food for thought.
Yes, food for thought.
All right. Earlier you'd mentioned your media presence. Was that the reason why you had participated in Live PD and 60 Days In?
So when I first became sheriff, I mean, I had a lot of problems. We told you about the problems we confronted, and though the
Yeah.
guy before me did really good on a lot of things, he also did a lot of media interviews. And so now, and then the other piece was Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who was just a legend not only in Arizona, but in the sheriff world. People outside of the country know him as the toughest sheriff in America. He did Sin City, he did Pink Underwear. He got beat. He was no longer the sheriff the year I started being sheriff. So it left this void of who was going to be the kind of the voice in the Phoenix Valley for law enforcement and for sheriffs. And so that naturally kind of opened a space for me. But I still had issues we were trying to get on top of. So Live PD came to me right away. And I was like, look, I'm like a baby deer on ice right now. I don't know. I'm trying to get my footing underneath me. And I said, we're just not in a place where I can do that right now. And 6 months down the road, we had kind of gotten a better feel for it. So I said, hey, reach out to Live PD and see if they're interested. I was out of town at a sheriff's training in Colorado. And on Monday, I told my chief to get a hold of them. By Thursday or Friday, they were in our cars riding around. I wasn't even home from Colorado before we went from calling them and saying we're interested to having them at our county out that fast. And then a month or two later, 60 Days In came. And most people don't realize that we were doing both of them at the same time. So we just saw an opportunity to promote the profession, to promote Pinal County and our agency, and to help with hiring. And we saw an opportunity to do the same thing in the jail with 60 Days In. So while they were risks, and most guys in law enforcement are very risk mitigating, they want to mitigate all the risk out of whatever they're doing. Yeah, even if it's dangerous, if we can mitigate the risk out of it, we will. So when I walk into my guys' office and I say, "Hey, we're going to do these two projects," they're very reluctant, to say the least. But I said, "Look, guys, it's going to work out fine, and these are the reasons why we're going to do it."
Right. So, how did that impact you? That national uh, exposure. How did that impact your county, and how did that impact your department?
Great, positively. Look, I'm a positive guy anyway. I mean, something bad could happen, and I'd still view it as positive. I think, like Rudyard Kipling says in his poem, which my second book is about, his poem "If," one of the stanzas says, uh, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same." And the truth is, they're both imposters. Even when bad things happen, you can usually maneuver those, and ultimately, it'll be a really great thing can come out of it. And things that really seem good on the surface can be really bad when you really start to get down the road on it. And so I've never been one of those people that says, "Oh, this is good or this is bad." I just say this is just another thing we're going to deal with. So
Right.
I'm already a positive guy. But I thought what it did for us is it made hiring a lot easier. The morale went up. We were able to show we were able to really bridge the gap between ourselves and our community a lot quicker than what we would have done with just social media. And nationally, my own personal brand, it was a benefit. It opened a lot of doors. People wanted to have you on interviews. I ended up co-hosting a show called Live PD Wanted, uh, which was under the Live PD family umbrella. And so
Mhm.
it just opened a lot of doors and gave me a lot of opportunities. And I'm one of those guys that will walk through open doors and see what's on the other side and what kind of uh, what life has in store for you. And so for me, it was great, and I thought it worked out really well for the agency as well. And we learned a lot, and we were able to move the needle forward a lot and put our agency on the map. To this point now, just to show you how important it was, if you take Facebook followers in the country, number one is the FBI. They have the most Facebook followers for law enforcement.
Mhm.
And then number two was New York, or the NYPD. We far surpassed them about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. The number two agency in the country for Facebook followers is the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. I think the number one law enforcement agency on YouTube is the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. And we're
Wow.
probably the only agency that monetizes our YouTube. And we take that money and use it for programs for our youth and shop at the sheriff and a lot of other things. So what we were able to do, and I think springboarded us with Live PD and 60 Days In, and really kind of opened my eyes as to how to use media to your benefit and to the benefit of the county and the agency and your employees. Uh, we were able to capture it, and I think we did a really good job at it. And they've continued to do a good job after I left as well.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I didn't know about all that stuff. I'm just mind-boggling. I mean, the exposure is just amazing.
And look, you can either, most people, to have earned organic growth is so important. And we were able to achieve that. And I look back, I probably should have maximized it more on a personal level. I
Mhm.
didn't do that. I was really focused on, yeah, I had my own social media stuff, but that was so that I could say what I wanted and it wasn't connected to the county. So I tried to walk that line very well. And I probably should have done more for my own personal brand on the backside and built up my own personal YouTube channel, but I didn't. I was focused on building it for our agency.
That's pretty awesome. Uh, Moving on to leadership and action. Law enforcement leadership has changed a lot in the last decade. How do you balance being a strong leader with also being approachable and community centered?
That's a great question. That's another great question. So when I decided to run for sheriff, there was two reasons I decided to run. For one, I didn't like the direction of the country. I especially didn't like the direction we were going with how politicians were driving a wedge between law enforcement and the community. So I didn't like that. Number two, I quickly realized when I got into this career that we didn't have real great leaders. We had supervisors, but they weren't necessarily great leaders. And I
Yes.
thought I could be a better leader. And so instead of being the guy that just sits in the corner of the squad room and bitches about everything, I thought I'd be the guy that does something about it. And so that's why I ran for sheriff. And I thought this is something that I can change. I can make a difference. And I was right. And leadership was everything that we needed. I heard the president of the country says, we didn't need more laws. We didn't need all this. We just needed different leadership. And what
Okay.
we needed in our agency was different leadership. And what this country needed was bold and different leadership. One of the challenges I faced was not that my guys weren't great leaders. They understood law enforcement very well, but they were very institutionalized. And that is the problem with most of our leadership in this profession is they are institutionalized. So they just kind of climb their way up this ladder. And as they get up, they learn that this is the way you do it and they don't ever change. And so when we came in, one of the biggest responses we got when we said, we would sit down with all the different parts of our agency and say, why are we doing it this way? And they would say, because that's the way we've always done it. To the point where we would sit down and say, do not let your response be, because this is the way we've always done it. It either needs to be, we're doing it because this is the legal way to do it, or we're doing it because this or that, but not because this is the way we've always done it. And when we started breaking through some of that, and even at my own chief level, I had to break through a lot of uncomfortable feelings that they had about the media, the social media, all of these things were very uncomfortable for them, but we had to push through it. That's what leadership is. Leadership is the guy that's willing to do the uncomfortable work and get us through the ice wall or over this mountain. You've got to have somebody that's got the vision and the willingness to push through the uncomfortable times to get to the other side if you're gonna have any success. And so we were able to do that. And fortunately, my guys, even though they were uncomfortable with it, and they probably talked me out of some good ideas as well, but for the most part, they were very supportive and said, Sheriff, we don't get it, we don't like it, it makes us uncomfortable, but we're with you and we're going to do it with you. And and thanks to them, we were able to get the agency to places that most places won't go because they're just kind of scared of it. They're worried. They are too institutionalized.
Right. You know, there's a lot of responsibility in being a leader, and it's a lot more than just climbing that proverbial bureaucratic ladder.
Yeah.
You know, being a leader means you have to take ownership, you have to take accountability and responsibility over many things, and take charge of whatever it is that you are taking charge of. So, I mean, I think you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. I always
Stood out.
quote. There's a quote by Publius Syrus, an old philosopher, who
Mhm.
said that anybody can hold the helm when the seas are calm. Like anybody can go and lead or be a supervisor when there's no problems going on.
Mhm.
It's really when the storms come that you're going to find out whether your guy has the moxie to grab the helm. And really, what the responsibility of leadership, and especially in law enforcement, is their job is to grab the helm when the seas are rough and to make sure that the crew is being taken care of and that their needs are met and keep it on the right path until you get through the storm. And a lot of these guys forgot about their employees. They forgot to make sure their needs were met. And most of them didn't even take the helm. They were letting the community, or they were letting the mobs, the pitchforks and the torches take the helm. And the politicians, and the pressure that they were feeling on those ends, they let that dictate where they went and who had the helm when the seas were rough. Not in my place. I knew what my role was. I grabbed the helm. I made sure my people were taken care of. And regardless of how ugly it might have looked through the storm, we were staying on the course that I swore an oath to, and that's what we did. And you saw it firsthand. And going back to COVID, COVID was a real eye opener and a real magnifying glass shined a light onto the people who were only there because they won an election or they climbed up the proverbial ladder. As soon as real leadership was required, most of them were nowhere to be found.
We will return after this quick ad break.
The William H. Bill Butler Jr. Foundation is on a mission to honor first responders and support those who serve. We provide scholarships for families who have lost a hero in the line of duty, offer second chances to juvenile offenders who are working to rebuild their future, and help new recruits pursuing careers as first responders. Through generous donations and the sale of merchandise, we're building a community that uplifts, empowers, and creates lasting impact. You can be a part of this mission as well. Visit 8158podcast.com to donate or shop today. Together, we can support those who serve, honor those we've lost, and give hope to those who need it most. Behind every badge is a story, and behind every story is a sacrifice. This is the 8158 podcast, where we honor the lives and legacies of first responders and their families. If our mission speaks to your heart, if these stories move you like they move us, join us on Patreon. For just $5 a month, you'll get ad-free listening, exclusive merchandise, behind-the-scenes content, and video episodes only available to our patrons. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement, and you can be a part of it. Support us at patreon.com/8158podcast. Let's continue to share the stories that deserve to be heard.
That's pretty awesome. Moving on to leadership and action. Law enforcement leadership has changed a lot in the last decade. How do you balance being a strong leader with also being approachable and community centered?
That's a great question. That's another great question. So when I decided to run for sheriff, there was two reasons I decided to run. For one, I didn't like the direction of the country. I especially didn't like the direction we were going with how politicians were driving a wedge between law enforcement and the community. So I didn't like that. Number two, I quickly realized when I got into this career that we didn't have real great leaders. We had supervisors, but they weren't necessarily great leaders. And I thought I could be a better leader. And so instead of being the guy that just sits in the corner of the squad room and bitches about everything, I thought I'd be the guy that does something about it. And so that's why I ran for sheriff. And I thought, this is something that I can change. I can make a difference. And I was right. And leadership was everything that we needed. I heard the president of the country says, we didn't need more laws. We didn't need all this. We just needed different leadership. And what we needed in our agency was different leadership. And what this country needed was bold and different leadership. One of the challenges I faced was not that my guys weren't great leaders. They understood law enforcement very well, but they were very institutionalized. And that is the problem with most of our leadership in this profession is they are institutionalized. So they just kind of climb their way up this ladder. And as they get up, they learn that this is the way you do it, and they don't ever change. And so when we came in, one of the biggest responses we got when we said, we would sit down with all the different parts of our agency and say, why are we doing it this way? And they would say, because that's the way we've always done it. To the point where we would sit down and say, do not let your response be, because this is the way we've always done it. It either needs to be, we're doing it because this is the legal way to do it, or we're doing it because this or that, but not because this is the way we've always done it. And when we started breaking through some of that, and even at my own chief level, I had to break through a lot of uncomfortable feelings that they had about the media, the social media, all of these things were very uncomfortable for them, but we had to push through it. That's what leadership is. Leadership is the guy that's willing to do the uncomfortable work and get us through the ice wall or over this mountain. You've got to have somebody that's got the vision and the willingness to push through the uncomfortable times to get to the other side if you're gonna have any success. And so we were able to do that. And fortunately, my guys, even though they were uncomfortable with it, and they probably talked me out of some good ideas as well, but for the most part, they were very supportive and said, Sheriff, we don't get it. We don't like it. It makes us uncomfortable, but we're with you and we're going to do it with you. And and thanks to them, we were able to get the agency to places that most places won't go because they're just kind of scared of it. They're worried. They are too institutionalized.
Right. You know, there's a lot of responsibility in being a leader, and it's a lot more than just climbing that proverbial bureaucratic ladder.
Yeah.
You know, being a leader means you have to take ownership, you have to take accountability, and responsibility over many things and take charge of whatever it is that you are taking charge of. So, I mean, I think you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
You
I always
stood out.
quote, there's a quote by Publius Syrus, an old philosopher, who
Mhm.
said that anybody can hold the helm when the seas are calm. Like anybody can go and lead when or be a supervisor when there's no problems going on.
Mhm.
It's really when the storms come that you're going to find out whether your guy has the moxie to grab the helm. And really, what the responsibility of leadership, and especially in law enforcement, is their job is to grab the helm when the seas are rough and to make sure that the crew is being taken care of and that their needs are met and keep it on the right path until you get through the storm. And a lot of these guys forgot about their employees. They forgot to make sure their needs were met. And and most of them didn't even take the helm. They were letting the community or they were letting the mobs, the pitchforks and the torches take the helm. And the politicians, and the pressure that they were feeling on those ends, they let that dictate where they went and who had the helm when the seas were rough. Not in my place. I knew what my role was. I grabbed the helm. I made sure my people were taken care of. And regardless of how ugly it might have looked through the storm, we were staying on the course that I swore an oath to, and that's what we did. And you saw it firsthand. And going back to COVID, COVID was a real eye opener and a real magnifying glass shined a light onto the people who were only there because they won an election or they climbed up the proverbial ladder. As soon
Yeah.
as real leadership was required, most of them were nowhere to be found.
Yeah, they definitely disappeared.
And when you
Well,
did find them, they were taking a knee and they were doing stupid stuff like that.
yeah, that was appalling. You know, taking a knee and bowing out and just
Yeah.
hiding their faces when it need to be come out and show accountability for their behavior or for their leadership.
I'll say one more thing about leadership is I've had a lot of chiefs and stuff say to me, well, it's awesome. You're the sheriff. You can say whatever you want. No, there's consequences to what I say too. I
Mhm.
just have an election every 4 years. You know, and here's what I always used to say. A chief can say what they want too. They just don't want to because they don't want to lose their jobs that are paying them a fat check. Nobody's there with a piece of tape or their hand over their mouth keeping them from saying it. They have chosen not to say it as a trade-off for continued employment. If you truly are, if honor is your focus, you have to be willing to do what is right no matter what the consequence was. I never once for a second thought whether this would cost me an election or not. I went out and did what I was right. And I always thought if I do what is right, no matter how hard it is and unpopular it is, either the people will vote you back in or they won't. Like you'll keep you or they won't. And I think that true leadership is you can't look at what the consequences of what you're going to do or say will be. You can say it. You just might lose your job if you do.
Right. Yeah, I would say that, you and another sheriff are the only two sheriffs that stand out. Uh, and I can't remember what his name is, but he's down in Florida. I think he
So
was in
it's
Polk
either
County.
Grady Judd or Wayne Ivy, Sheriff Grady Judd or Wayne Ivy.
I think it's Judd, I believe. Yeah.
Sheriff Grady Judd's the guy that when they shot this person, they shot him like 60 times. And so the media says, hey, why did you guys shoot that guy 60 times? Because he says, because we ran out of ammo.
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
was his answer for that, which was gold, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, how else do you put it? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that simple. I mean, what are the consequences of, firing at a law enforcement officer? I mean, what are you going to get? That's what you're going to get.
That's it. We just had a lady that obviously I'm not the sheriff now, but she had a bunch of warrants, and this is abnormal. This is usually not a female that does this, but we got into a pursuit with her, and they pitted her and got her off the road, and she got out straight away and with a gun and shot at the deputies, and then the deputies The bullet just went right past him through the window, and he got glass shards on his face. So it was close. Luckily, it didn't hit the deputy, and there was three of them there. They got out of the car and they smoked this lady. They shot her a bunch of times. And now the people are like, well, the cop shot her so many times. It's like, yeah, we're trained to shoot until we stop the threat. And so she shot at the deputies, and she got shot as many times as she needed to be shot to stop the threat. That's what happened.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I believe that same thing happened to my cousin's assailant. My cousin Billy, he was a sheriff's deputy, and that's why we started this podcast. He was responding to a backup call and assisting other deputies, and he arrived on scene 10 seconds, and the suspect pulled a gun and shot my cousin just below the face and killed him instantly.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. He was gone for like 4 hours. They couldn't find him, but I believe all the surrounding counties and the Michigan State Police brought their SWAT team in, and they found him in the bushes. And that's pretty much what they did. Is they put an end to him like that.
We've become a soft society where we don't want to hold criminals accountable. And then but they also, the same people want to live in this utopia where everybody loves each other and everything's just all good. And the flowers grow without dung and all this stuff. No, that's not the way the world is. And you need tough men that are willing to go out and that are willing to stand on the line and protect you and stop the wolves from coming into your home. And it doesn't look great. But we've got to hold people accountable. If we don't, then our society will crumble and we'll have nothing. And the wolves will take over and it will be a disaster. And so I just have been an unapologetic defender of what is right and defender of this profession. And I fight because of men like your cousin who sacrificed his life. We owe it to those men and women who have sacrificed their life to do it the right way and to hold people accountable and not chastise these people that are committing crimes and send them on their way or defend them in many cases, which is what we're seeing nowadays, where you'll hear parents say when the kids break into somebody's house with a gun in their hands and they get shot and killed, the parent will come on TV and be like, that was a good boy. He was just trying to get something. You should have just let him steal from your house. No, the society is messed up. And so you still need people that are going to be willing to stand in the gap. It doesn't always work out. I've been sharing this quote a lot lately, and I like it. And it was from Rick and Morty. I don't really watch the show, but Rick and Morty's cartoon. And at one point, Morty says something truthful, but very unpopular. And so he gets on the stage, and everybody's booing him. Boo, boo. And Morty grabs the mic and he says, your boos mean nothing because I've seen what you people cheer for. And honestly, that resonated with me. The boos of the critics that I have mean nothing because I have seen what they cheer for. And I'm not okay with it. And so I think we need to be tougher. We need to raise our children to be tougher. And that's just, if we're going to be successful as a society and survive into the future, we got to get rid of this softness that we have.
Right. I think society has gone backwards and it's gone crazy. And we need to try to fix it and change it back.
Correction will be uncomfortable. It will correct. Whether we do it right now and we do it in a way that is acceptable to society, or we allow it to go so far that it self-corrects, it will be a problem. And people are, if they didn't like it now, they're really not going to like it when it self-corrects.
That's right. That's right. So what does being a constitutional sheriff mean to you? And did that influence your policies and decisions?
The left, and somebody just sent me a copy of an AI. Somebody typed in Sheriff Lamb and AI, and spit some of this stuff out. The left and the reporters have turned this, like many things, into a negative. Somehow,
Mhm.
constitutional sheriff became a negative. If you were a constitutional sheriff, you were a fringe guy. You were off the railroad tracks. I couldn't think of a worse thing to demonize as somebody that is constitutional. I get this a lot. First of all, let's take the sheriff out of it. I'm an elected official. Me, along with every other elected official, whether you're the treasurer, the supervisor, the vice president, a congressman, congresswoman, whatever your role is, you swore an oath. We all swear a similar oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And
Yes.
so we have a responsibility. So I used to say to reporters, why are you asking me this question as if I'm the person that's doing it wrong? What you should be asking is these other politicians why they are not following the Constitution. That's the question you should be asking. Now, constitutional sheriff, I say, yeah, because I follow the Constitution. If that's what you want to throw at me as a negative, then yeah, so be it. I am a guy that follows the Constitution. I went into Dan Abrams, who does Live PD. He also has a show on
Mhm.
News Nation. One day he said, hey, I want you to come on and debate this constitutional sheriff idea with me. So I get on there, and of course, he wants to turn it into a negative. And I said, Dan, look, the Supreme Court exists because states will pass laws and the federal government will pass laws that are not in harmony with the Constitution. And the Supreme Court's their job is to say this is unconstitutional and the law is no good. That's what the courts, and especially the Supreme Court are for. I said, but in the meantime, you have a state that passes a law, and then you have, like a Second Amendment law, and then you have the Constitution that says that it shall not be infringed. Whose job is it to be the arbiter of that until those are defined by the courts as being constitutional or not? It's
Right.
the sheriffs. And he goes, well, I don't like that. And I go, I get that you don't like it, but who else is going to do it? We didn't ask to be put in this position. We were put here because politicians keep doing things that are unconstitutional. And I said, you're now putting us in the position of having to be the arbiter of that until it's defined. And that's why the sheriffs oftentimes, you know why they don't like the sheriffs? Because we are the last line of defense. If you
Right.
didn't have good sheriffs in this country, the government would run roughshod over you. The sheriff is one of the most important positions in this country in most states. Some states have already lost it. But most states, the sheriff is the person that will protect you from the bad guys and from government overreach. And
Right.
so the sheriff should be a constitutionally minded person because it is our job to enforce the law. And if politicians pass a bad law, it is my job as a sheriff to ensure that I do not let you violate somebody's constitutional rights because you folks were so unconstitutionally minded and passed a law that wasn't good.
Mhm.
And and you know who did that? The people elected us to do that. That's what I
Right.
told Dan Abrams. I said, you may not like it, but that's what the people want. And that's what the people elected me to do. And so for anybody out there, it is not a negative thing to be a person a constitutional sheriff or a constitutional elected official. Every one of us should be doing the same thing. So that is not a negative, but they have tried to make it a negative. And if you look at anything like the Politico or all these different anti-law enforcement, anti-American publications, media outlets, they have tried to paint me as somebody that is, uh, crazy. But the reality is, I did my job as the sheriff, and
Yeah.
that was to protect the Constitution. So yeah, I guess I'm a constitutional sheriff.
Yeah. I mean, I would totally believe that. And I mean, you killed it, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And these people that are mocking you or trying to paint you in a negative light, they don't like it because it goes against their beliefs because they want things their way.
Yeah,
They
but
don't
they're a
want
bunch of do nothings. They're a
right.
bunch of do nothings. You know how
Yeah.
easy it is for me to sit there and talk about what everybody else does? That's what the media is. The media is not out doing anything. They're not out trying to make a better world. They're just armchair quarterbacking it. They're sitting on
Right.
to the sidelines like the peanut gallery, and if they're politically motivated one way or the other, then they drive the conversation the direction they want it to go. But they're a bunch of do nothings.
Right.
They were so scared to go out and do anything in life that they just took a job where they talk about the people who do stuff in life.
Right. Yeah. And it is. That was funny. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's another quote from Aristotle. It says the only way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, or be nothing. And I refuse to not do anything. You know, Abraham Lincoln says to sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men. So I refuse not to say anything when things are wrong. And I absolutely refuse to not be anything. I want to be something. I'm a son of God. I was sent here to be something special. There's nobody like me in this world. There's nobody with the same fingerprints, the same DNA, the same irises. I get that. I understand the importance that my singular life has here. I don't let the world revolve around me, but I understand that I'm here to give something to the world, and I strive valiantly to do that every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are things like you were here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. Uh, Doing this podcast, I don't know if that was my reason or not, but it might be because, to be honest, I was not the social person. I had no plans. I had no ideas of doing a podcast. I was just gonna drive truck for the rest of my life and just live a life. But this came along, and my wife told me to do the podcast, and I just like, are you crazy? Like, I am not a social person. I don't like talking to people. She goes, you have the personality. You can do it. And she pushed me to do it. And now we're out, a little over 6 months, and we have over 50 something episodes. This is going to be season 2. So,
Good.
so
Well, man, good
running
for
over.
you. But you're out there pushing yourself beyond the comfort zone. You're pushing yourself, and because you feel the need to. If you're alive, if anybody's listening, if you're still alive, you got something more you got to do in this world. Because when God's done with you, when your mission's over, he'll take you back. The one thing that we realize in life, and look, it hit me personally. We lost one of our kids. We lost my son, my 22-year-old son, my 11-month-old granddaughter, and my daughter-in-law were all killed in an accident. And you know, I understand the finality of life, and it sucks sometimes, but nobody leaves this world alive. Everybody will die at some point. And the only thing you take with you is what you did in this life. And there is no guarantee for tomorrow. So we live that life with that mentality of let's work hard, let's enjoy every day, let's have a positive attitude, and then let's try to make the biggest impact we can, and let's try to find those areas where my gifts and talents are meant to be applied in this world and help somebody else or protect somebody or change something or whatever it is. I've tried to take that on, and kudos to you, man, for doing it and getting out of your comfort zone and doing the podcast. It's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We support law enforcement. We support all first responders, and we kind of dive into a lot of their personal uh, things that they go through, like, some of the traumas that they go through and the PTS, the post-traumatic stress, and all the kinds of things that they deal with. And to me, it was like very validating, and it made me feel good as a person, and it helped me grow as a person for them to trust me to come out and talk to me about those things. And I know how hard it is because I myself had gone through a lot of childhood traumas, compounding traumas, and had to deal with a lot of that stuff. So it helps me grow as a person, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And
You're
beyond
helping
that,
people. That's awesome.
exactly. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
And I'll tell you, speaking of police and law and military, this is a good segue into it. Is I just kicked off another business. So now that I'm not the sheriff, I ran for
Mhm.
Senate, didn't win. So now I'm not the sheriff. I had to go get a job. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I've been wanting to do for a long time, even before I've left as sheriff, was I want to help other law enforcement and veterans change their purpose in life. You know, there's a really alarming statistic that the average police officer will die within 5 years of retirement.
Mm.
That's crazy. And to me, it's a lot about purpose. And so I just got through writing this new book, 10 to 7, where your
Mhm.
shift ends, when your shift ends and your life begins. And I've got this book it's actually, you'll be able to download it now, but we're going to go gangbusters on it at the end of the month, July 31st. And then we also kicked off a website, 107consulting.com, or go107, GOTEN7.com. And what we do is we teach you all about the business. We're empowering law enforcement, veterans, and non-law enforcement and veterans. You don't have to be a cop. We want you to come out here. We want to help you build a business. We're going to teach you what you need. We're going to help you step by step along the way. And we need to give our military and veterans, and frankly, anybody out there, purpose in life. And building your own business, something that you want to do, it builds a legacy for your family, and also gives you purpose, a reason to wake up every morning. We don't want you dying within a few years. We want you to collect that retirement long into the future. And we also want you to build something that's going to impact your family in a positive way. So we help you set it up. So go107.com, go107.com. Please get on, become a member. We're creating this whole community. And so we think it is great already. We're helping a ton of people already, and we want to help more.
Yeah, I was going to get into that, because you're launching that 10/7 consulting. So that is pretty awesome. Uh,
Thank you. Well, sorry I took the thunder out. I thought it was a good segue. You let it in, and I was like, this is a good segue. I'm going to do it right now.
no, you're good. You're good. No, it was good. Yeah. Yeah, I was getting to that, and I'm glad you brought it out. Uh, so what inspired you to start that company? Like, down and dirty, what was the main cause?
A couple different things, but the primary cause was I came from the business world before I was a cop. Then I became a cop, and throughout the years, even when I got ready to run for sheriff, I could just see how nervous and how risk adverse, which is funny because cops are not, we take risk every day, life and death risk. But here's what we do is we mitigate it. We go through training, and we do SWAT plans if we do a SWAT hit. We do everything we do is to try to minimize risk down to next to nothing.
Mhm.
And so when I would talk to these guys about business, I could just see almost every one of them had very little knowledge. They're like, I wouldn't even know how to start a business. And to me, here these guys are giving their life, putting their life and their trauma. The average police officer, they say, will experience between 400 and 700 traumatic experiences throughout their career. And the average citizen will only go through 2 to 4. So the trauma, their lives will never be the same. Their marriages often fall apart. It is a heavy toll. And the least that I thought I could do for them was to help them transition that into a new phase of life and take that and build on their retirement, but give them new purpose, but give them the confidence and mitigate the risk on the business side for them as much as we could to make them feel comfortable. And then the other piece was I wanted to do something with my kids. So it's myself and my kids that are involved in building this. We got some attorneys that believe in our law enforcement and our veterans. So they're helping out with the videos and helping because we help you set up your first LLC with your membership. And then we also have veterans involved. So this is something that I wanted to build for military, for law enforcement, to give them something back and help them take that next step in life and redefine the purpose. Even if you're on the job still, set up your business. You'll save, we're doing it for $599 to be a member. You get all the videos. We help you set up a corporate or a LLC, and you get access to the attorneys. But just for the tax reasons alone, if you don't have an LLC, you're probably losing several thousand, if not 10,000 more in tax write-offs that you could have had if you had just had a business set up. So we're helping people do that too. But the reason was I want to help these guys. I want them to live. I want them to enjoy retirement, but I also want them to continue to have purpose.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I know that we have an LLC, and we also have a 501(c), a nonprofit
Awesome.
organization.
Yep,
So
that's awesome.
that's
Right.
in my cousin's name in honor of him. That money goes directly towards helping law enforcement, first responders, military veterans, fallen heroes, family members of fallen heroes, and also too, like new recruits, if they're trying to get into school, we offer them scholarships. It's still in the infancy stage. It's up and running, but we're still collecting funding for it. So we're building
Yeah,
that up.
that's awesome.
So,
Congratulations. I mean, thank you for doing that. I mean, I'm doing the one called Support Our Sheriff's Foundation, where we're helping, we're giving checks to the families of the deputies and detention officers who die in the line of duty that work at sheriff's offices. And then also we're helping with training and resources for those agencies that can't afford it. We want to be able to fill that gap. So we're building that up as well. But yeah, man, thank you for doing what you're doing, and it's truly an honor for your cousin who lost his life in the line of duty. What you're doing,
yeah, appreciate that. And what was that called again? Helping the sheriff or something?
supportoursheriffs.org. So support our sheriffs foundation. You can go to supportoursheriffs.org, and we've helped some guys already that sadly some deputies that have died in the line of duty, and we've had to take their families some checks. We want to get to where we can give them 50,000, 100,000. I mean, it really just depends on what kind of money we're able to bring in. But
Right.
part of what I'm doing with 10-7 consulting is going to help. We're going to put some of that money into support our sheriffs and other organizations like yourselves. We want to give a certain percentage of that money back to these different 501(c)(3)s that are out doing great work.
Yeah. One thing we always tell people is we don't get paid for that. We're doing it on our own money. Like the podcast, we're doing that with our own money. The merchandise that we make, we're paying for our own money. And with the 501(c), none of the board members get paid. I'm the president. My cousin's wife, she's the vice president. My wife, she's the treasurer. Her mom is the secretary, and a friend of mine who's a firefighter, he's an auxiliary board member. Um, None of us get paid, so it's all volunteer work. And
Yeah.
so, just so people know, all that money goes directly where it's supposed to, and all the costs for all the paperwork and all that stuff, we just pay for that ourselves.
Yeah, that's how we're doing ours too. Because it's, you get some of these organizations, I won't name any of them, but man, they take in a lot of money, but they don't give out a lot of money.
Right. It
Yeah.
takes away the purpose of what it's meant to be, and we
Yep,
don't want to use like that.
that's
No,
right.
and that would give my cousin's honor a bad name, and we don't want to do
Yeah.
that because I
Well,
love
good
him.
for you guys. I love seeing guys like you doing great things. So
Appreciate that. Uh, so you kind of went into a little bit about how 10-7 consulting equips officers and departments for success in the field. What does that mean for their leadership or your leadership or helping them out in that way?
I want to branch off and get into some of the leadership part of it. Right now, we're focused on getting these guys and building up their post career lives and current lives. And like I
Hmm.
said, you don't have to be a cop or a veteran. I mean, obviously that's the audience we're catered to, but even if you're just a supporter and you want to build a business, if you want to, I personally get on the phone with each one of our new members and we do a one-on-one and we walk through and I talk through with what is it they want to do and we help them build their business and get it set up right. and then we build a community to help each other get your business going. And we've got all the tools there for it. I would love to do something that goes into the leadership aspect of it as well. I've got one more book I'm going to write that's at least for now, which is a leadership book. And so once I get that book out there, I think we're going to do a whole leadership piece to really help some of these guys be better leaders and tap into that uncomfortable part of leadership where greatness between being a good leader and a great leader.
Right. Exactly. I'm into that. So that kind of brings us into this. A new question is, you said that everything rises and falls on leadership. What's one thing every leader in law enforcement needs to hear right now?
Take care of your people. I think society is tough, and it's easy to be self-preservation in a leadership position. But I think if you take the mantle of leadership, leadership is you are there to lead your people, to protect them, to guide them to whatever destination you're trying to get to be at the front of the battlefield with them. It's all about people. And my family, I lead my family, my kids, my grandkids. It's about them when I do it. And so I just think that leadership needs to understand it's about your people. Whatever you're doing, the job you took, yeah, you might get paid a little bit more because you took that job. Wasn't necessarily true for being sheriff, but maybe a chief job or whatever job leadership you're in, you took a little bit more money, but you took that job. Ultimately, you should understand that it's because of the people you're leading, and
Right.
you better do right by them. Take care of your people, and that means get them the raises, get them the create an environment that they want to work in, remove some of the hindrances and the things that. And look, employees, man, sometimes you can give them $100 and they'll bitch that why isn't it 520s? It's too hard to
Mhm.
spend $100. So some employees you will never make happy, but you can still take care of them,
Exactly.
and that's your job as a leader.
Right. Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The company that I drive for, it's a pallet company, and I get paid fairly decent. And it's not as much as everybody would like a lot of us drivers would like. But the thing that I like about it is they take care of me.
Yeah.
And the guys that we work with, they not only pay us well and they give us a per diem every week, um, by the mile, and they pay us by the hour plus overtime, but they give us the time off we need. If anything happens, they're there for us. Um, you know, like when my cousin passed away, they offered to pay me bereavement pay and all that stuff. And as soon as I told them, they said, "Go ahead and do what you got to do." Didn't even blink an eye. They didn't say
Awesome.
no. It was like, "Go ahead and take care of your family." So, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I mean, we're not getting rich off of them, but they take care of me, and that have a lot of respect for my bosses and the owners. So
That's awesome.
it
And
means a
and
lot.
look, companies can do what they can. Truly, wealth is you got to go build it yourself. So you either got to go out and build your own business, or you got to develop a product that is phenomenal. And even a lot of business owners, you may never be wealthy, but you're still in it. You're still in it. And
Hmm.
okay, I just got in trouble. My wife's
Uh
like, "Hey, I got it. I need." So I'm gonna probably have to wrap it up in a few minutes. But
oh. Okay.
I don't know how many more questions you have, but
One,
one
two,
more thing. Go back
okay.
to going back to 10-7.
Okay.
That's why we built 10-7, because you can have the job that you have, which is an awesome job, and they take care of you. There's nothing that says you can't start something on the other, something outside of that, which allows you to build even more wealth. And there is no cap on it. You can dictate your efforts, and your creativity will dictate how much money you might be able to make on the side off of that. As a sheriff, I wouldn't have been able to survive on my salary alone. I had to go out and do extra work and build, businesses on the side. And that's how I was able to bridge that gap and stay in the position that I love, is because I was able to go out and make some money on the side doing other things. And
Right.
you love your job and they treat you good. It's also good to have something, building something on the side and
Mhm.
something that's for your family and that puts a little extra money in your pocket. There's
Yeah.
24 hours in a day, man. Most companies only require you to work 8 to 10. That
Right.
leaves a lot of time left over to go out and do some extra stuff.
Get something else. Yeah. Definitely does. Uh, I'll go ahead and run through these real quick so you don't
Yeah,
get in
let's
trouble.
rapid fire. We'll do some rapid fire.
Beyond badge and politics, what being the first responder? What's it like being a first responder meant to you personally?
I never set out in life to be one, but I'll tell you what, I gravitated to it immediately, and because it allowed me to really protect the things I love, which is God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. And I felt like I was having a measurable difference in people's lives and in my community. And I loved it. From being a police officer to being the sheriff, I just felt very blessed to have done the job. I pushed myself into areas that I never thought I'd go. I've seen things and been able to overcome things that I never would have thought you could push yourself to. Um, so yeah, it was very, I love that portion of my life. I'm moving to another one now, and I look forward to building on, taking those skills that I learned in this profession and now putting it in play into something else and building other things and building some things with my family. So I couldn't have gotten to the point I'm at right now, or at least I could have. Maybe it'd have been a different path. But I attribute my success to my career in law enforcement and my time as a sheriff.
Okay. Can you share a moment briefly about your career and that reminded you exactly why you chose the path?
Man, there's a lot of them. You save a lot of lives along the way. But I think for me, ultimately was when I became the sheriff, just the impact I had in youth. I developed a youth leadership program that took kids, and instead of putting them and running them through the legal system, we were able to change the trajectory of their lives. We built a program that was unlike any other program in the country. The county attorney was on board. We had over 200 kids go through that program during that time that would have actually have gotten arrested and had charges and gone through the court system. We ultimately changed the direct trajectory of their life, how they felt about themselves, and how they felt about police through this program. We had over 200 kids go through it. We had less than 5 reoffend. So when I look at my time as a police officer, I look at it and say, those lives that I was able to change and impact are what I love the most about it. Not the bad things you saw or the bad things people did or the arrest you made. None of that stuff. It's the stuff where you truly made a difference. And probably the youth redirection program and a lot of the programs we did, our Humvee program, our housing unit for military veterans in the jail. We saw tremendous success with that. So we were just able to implement a lot of different programs that really changed lives, and that's what I was probably most proud of.
Nice. And what legacy do you hope to leave behind from the time as sheriff in Pinal County?
So even above and beyond this is the same answer, but I got asked this question by Oliver North, Colonel Oliver North, several years ago. Any of the older folks will know from the '80s, Iran Contra, but Colonel
Yeah.
Oliver North was a very well-known Army
Oh,
colonel. He did a podcast and he asked me at the end of the podcast the same question: how do you want people to remember you, or how do you want your grandchildren to remember you? And I said, I want them to remember me as a patriot who fought valiantly for God, family, freedom, and the Constitution. That's what I want people to remember me for. Whatever they say about Sheriff Lamb, Live PD, 60 Days In, whatever it is, I want them to say that man is a patriot and he fought valiantly. And I'll tell you one quick little story how I know that this has resonated. My grandson was driving with my daughter's friend and his little buddy,
mhm.
and they were driving past some place and it had a big American flag waving, and he said, "Oh, look, an American flag." And he paused for a second, and then he said, "That's my papa's flag." And so when your grandson equates the American flag to his grandpa, I've done my part to instill that type of patriotism. And as if my grandson sees me that way, hopefully the people of Pinal County and the employees saw me that way. Hopefully people across America see me that way. But that's how I want to be remembered, as a patriot who fought valiantly for God, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
Amazing. Amen. That's pretty awesome. Uh, what are you most excited for in the next chapter, both professionally and personally?
Well, I'm excited about helping a lot of people build businesses and help them find purpose and success. I'm excited about our family's endeavors. We're looking at buying a ranch out in Tennessee, and we're going to be doing a lot with the ranch there. I'm excited about what's that?
It'll be closer to us.
Yeah, I'll be close to you guys. It's beautiful out there, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to imparting some of the leadership things that I've learned. I'm looking forward to, like I said, the 10-7 and getting people to another level in their lives and helping them, and building a few other businesses with my kids. That's what's exciting for me.
That's awesome. Do you have any most memorable calls that you responded to?
Like, I've got a ton of them. The one I told you about already is one that got me into this job.
Yeah.
And probably I'll culminate it with the one that I left this job, where my final 10-7 call. So for those who don't know, 10-7, at least in most places, not everywhere, is off duty. I'm check off duty. That was my last 10-7 call. So being the one that before I was a cop, I remember that one, and the one where I left this profession, making that final call, were probably the two most impactful calls in my career, because one started it and the one culminated it.
All right. Amen. Wonderful career that was. One piece of gear that you never went without.
Gun. It's better to have and not need than to need and not have. And you know what your pistol's for, right? To get you back to your rifle.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Right.
I always had my gun with me.
All right. Yeah, guns are fun. One more question. Your favorite leadership quote or motto?
I said that one already. I got a lot of them. I'm going to tell you one that I quote all the time.
Okay.
And it's kind of a leadership. It's also taking leadership of your own life. And it's from the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And it's the very last paragraph. And it says, "Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace be still." I think if you can take that mindset into leadership or anything you do in life, and have dominion over your mind and your body and your thoughts and your actions, I think you'll be successful, and you'll certainly be a successful leader. But you have to keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. Because every one of us, in the bark of our soul, we do have a commanding master. You got to wake him up and get him up to the helm of the ship.
Amen. Love it. Love it. I won't take any more of your time. I know you got the whip getting on you.
Yeah.
Janelle's at the helm right now. So
That's right. I have to go do an interview. I got to go do a Fox interview, and I got to go drive out there to it. So,
okay. Everybody, this is Sheriff Mark Lamb. Wonderful, wonderful man. God bless him. And
thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
And his wife, Janelle. Thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you. And make sure you go to go107.com.
Yep. Go107.com.
GOTN7.com. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you having me. Tell your wife it was nice meeting her.
Yeah. Will do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. All right, everybody. That was retired Sheriff Mark Lamb, 8158 podcast, Stories of Sacrifice. Awesome man, great man, God fearing, loving, uh, everything that a patriot should be. And hopefully his words resonate with you people that are listening and all of the followers that listen to this podcast. We love you guys. And hopefully you got something out of this story and this interview with Sheriff Mark Lamb. He's an awesome person. He's a great leader. And I definitely thank him for coming on here and gracing us and giving us time to do this interview. That being said, this is 8158, Stories of Sacrifice. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.